potent advice, and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to The Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jaime Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I am Jaime Masters, and I am so excited to have my good friend, Brad Weimert, on the show. Good thing I got your name hopefully correct. He runs Easy Pay Direct. You can see it in the background. He also runs Everesting X2 and does adventure trips for entrepreneurs. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. It should be fun.
Yeah, we were just talking about before.
Better be fun.
It will be. Oh, watch out. We saw each other last night at an event, and I realized how little I know about you. So this is going to be great. So tell everybody a little bit about Easy Pay Direct and Everesting X2, and that way I'll ask a bazillion other questions afterwards.
Cool. So Everesting X2 is just an event that I just did, and I'll tell you about that in a second. So Easy Pay Direct is a company that I founded in 2009 that serves e-commerce entrepreneurs. So we predominantly work with e-commerce businesses that sell between 1 and 100 million online, and we process payments for them. We focus on controlling 5 metrics. So it's refund rates, decline rates, chargeback rates, how much you're paying, which is your effective rate, and then risk. And so we benchmark those metrics against your industry and help you control those over time. So we're helping you optimize revenue essentially for your company.
Wow.
So that's Easy Pay Direct. And Everesting X2.
You're like, and this is where I'm kind of crazy. Brad is crazy and does crazy things. So that's my premise before you say that. So go ahead.
That's fair. So Everesting X2 was the most recent adventure that I went on, I suppose, big adventure. A friend, acquaintance, Jesse Itzler, rented a mountain. Jesse is also a fellow crazy person, and rented a mountain and challenged 140 people to climb the mountain 17 times. And 17 times is the height equivalent of Mount Everest. So it's 29,000 feet climbed if you climb it 17 times. So he rented it for a weekend. Of the 140, about half of them finished it. And in the same period of time that they were trying to do 17, I climbed it 34 times. So that's the nutshell. But there's a video at everestingx2.com that has a good little 5-minute overview that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you know how I said I was crazy? Well, he's crazy times 2, apparently. Which is something to be said. Why the heck do you even do that, by the way? Like, why did you do it in the first place? Right? Like, I know not backing down for a challenge is definitely an entrepreneur trait, but why did you do it twice?
There are a lot of ways I could answer that. There's why I decided to do it, and then there's kind of why I followed through with it. And ultimately, it was a good way to, I think anything really difficult like that is a good way to learn new things, both about yourself and also about other people. And what I raised some money for a really cool nonprofit in Austin called Explore Austin. They take groups of underprivileged kids on adventure trips to teach them team building and life skills through mentorship and adventure. So that was a part of it. But I have just a really concrete belief that very unique experiences, and specifically ones that involve pushing yourself athletically, teach you a ton and also open up relationships in a way that nothing else does. So there's a long rambling answer to that, but that's kind of the nutshell, I think.
So why 34? Why not 18? Why not just go, and I did it one more time? Just saying.
Yeah. So the honest answer to that is Mark is Jesse's partner in this, and they organized this event, and Mark talked to every attendee, every one of the 140. So I'm at a bar in Denver at an event, and I'm talking to Mark. And so the event was from Friday afternoon at 2 p.m. until Sunday at 2 p.m. And I said, Mark, are you actually giving people 3 days to do this? And I had a couple Manhattans. And
oh, I see where this is going. Okay, continue.
And Mark's like, oh, yeah. He's like, do you think that's not long enough? And I was like, I could do that twice in 3 days. And yeah, exactly. And he was like, oh yeah. And I said, well, I've had a couple of Manhattans. Let me think about this out of your mouth and just step up and do this. And I was like, okay. And that really was the catalyst. Now, going from foot in my mouth to actually doing it in decision is a process, right? But that was how the thing even started.
And then once you say it, you're one of those entrepreneurs where you're like, never mind, now I have to do it. Okay, well hey.
Yeah, but not only, and that's actually an interesting point because yes, I am that person. But originally I thought that I was going to be able to go just straight and go through the night and just do it. But they had all these restrictions on when you were allowed to climb on the mountain. So like the event started at 2 p.m. I thought I was going to be able to start early in the morning on Friday, go all the way Friday, sleep.
When you rent a mountain, you would think, okay, sorry.
Yeah. And then go all the way Saturday and sleep. And what ended up happening was I couldn't start until 2 p.m. on Friday, which cut, 8 hours out of the day. And they forced us to stop at 5 p.m. on Saturday. So I had 27 hours available, or 27 hours available at first. Then I couldn't do anything, and then I had to get up at 5:30 a.m. the next morning and do another 8 hours. But that's a very different pattern. So like as the rules kept changing for me, I had this emotional challenge of, am I going to be able to do this? Can I do this? Is it possible? And the short answer was nobody knew. Nobody had done it before. So it was a trip.
A little bit. So what'd you learn? What's that big takeaway from doing it? Besides the fact that you could do it and you pushed yourself, but like what did you really take away from it?
A lot of things, but I think that the number one thing for me really was, so I had finished at the end of the first stint. So I went from 2 p.m. Friday all the way straight through the night Saturday, didn't sleep, went until 5 p.m. Saturday afternoon. So I 27 hours straight. I'm just climbing up. And the way this worked was I went up the mountain and then I take a gondola down. And the gondola took 10 minutes to get down. Or in the middle of the night, we were taking cars down. And when I say we, there were like 3 of us going through the night.
So it was all uphill too. So it's not like climbing the mountain where you go up and then down and then up and then down. Okay.
You got it.
Man,
all uphill. And there are ups and downs. There are benefits to that and also negative things about that. But the biggest negative is you are letting your body rest. And so all the lactic acid settles. So you're restarting every time you have to go back up the mountain. You have to warm up again. But I was, each lap was taking about 45, 50 minutes up and then 10, 15 minutes down. So an hour all in. But I had done 24 laps by the end of the day, Saturday, and it took me 27 hours. So it was actually taking me a little longer than an hour per lap. And when I finished that day, I had 8 hours remaining on Sunday, but I had 10 laps left. So each lap had taken me an hour all in. I had 10 laps left to do in only 8 hours. And I drag that out and I talk about that because, we as entrepreneurs, but as people at large, you do something once or twice or 3 times and you start to create a belief that that is what it is, right? And I had done this 24 times. So my belief around how long it took to go up the mountain was pretty strong, right? It was a pretty
being tired afterwards, right? Like now you have negatives too.
And I'm exhausted, right? And when I say exhausted, I mean, I'm concerned that I'm going to pop an ACL or tear my Achilles, or things are breaking mechanically. And so at the end of the day, I did a Facebook Live that is, I think, on the Everest X2 page, but I did a Facebook Live and I was talking to people and friends and everybody's like, you can do it, don't give up. And my inner dialogue was, I'm not giving up. Like, this is math, right? There are 8 hours left and I have to do 10 laps. Like that doesn't work. So I finished that night. I took an ice bath. I took a shower. I ate food and I laid down and in a tent, by the way, that I was sleeping in, which was 100 feet from a Bob Marley cover band that was playing. I could literally feel the bass in my tent, which is crazy. But I laid down and I got 2 people did really powerful things for me. One was Cameron Harold. And
I've interviewed Cameron, so everybody knows him. Yeah.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. So Cameron is becoming a good friend, and he left me like a 5-minute voicemail, and he probably called me 5 times and was just really inspirational to me, giving me different ways to try to solve the problem. And he said, look, can you do a couple laps in the middle of the night? Can I rent a helicopter for you so we can fly you down from the top of the mountain, right? Can I rent a separate car service? Can we get a motorcycle up there? All these different options. And meanwhile, I haven't slept in 40 hours, right? I'm totally wrecked here. And I've been exercising for 27 straight. Nauseous, whole thing. The other was Curtis Christopherson, who owns a chain of nutrition stores in Canada and is also an endurance athlete. And Curtis called and texted a bunch of times. I didn't talk to either of them because I didn't want their motivation or inspiration at the end of this day. But Curtis sent me a text and he said, hey, I know every lap's been taking you 45 minutes to go up. If you just did every lap in 30 minutes, you could do it in 8 hours.
You're like, great, I hate you.
Yeah, those weren't the words I chose in my own head, but yes. But when I woke up at 5:45 the next morning and pulled myself out of bed in the tent, and I'm, achy and didn't really sleep because my body is every muscle is, my body's in a lot of pain. I thought, all right, well, let's see what I can do for the first lap. And so the first lap I did in 33 minutes. And I got to the top and it was a totally different game. Like my heart was thumping, I'm breathing heavy, crazy. And I finish it and I think, all right, well, that was cool, but I can't do that 10 times. And I got to the bottom and I said, all right, well, let's see if I can do it one more time. I did it once more and I did it in 32 minutes. And I thought, all right, well, when am I going to break? And the entire day it was one lap at a time. But each lap I ended up doing around 30 minutes. And the end of that story was it became clear when I had about 3 laps left that I was going to do it. But you ask what the major takeaway was, and it is that when, we as humans create these beliefs, and very often those beliefs can not only be wrong, but can be so wrong that you can be capable of a lot more than where you're living in the moment. This wasn't so. Frame of reference here: 45 minutes to 30 is it's a 30+% gain, and not to do that once, but to do it 10 times. You're resetting your entire frame, your entire world. So anything in your life, if you think about that and say, man, what if I could do it 30% better, right? What if I could do it 10% better? Those things are real. And so it becomes very real when you physically don't think you're capable of it. But it was a beautiful example for me of what can be possible in the rest of life.
So what was going through your head? Because this is the thing too. Everyone that's an entrepreneur is like, okay, well, he's crazy. That's great, right? But how do we? Because the amount of strength that I want to make sure that we're not going, oh, but he's crazy, so therefore that's him, and I don't have to deal with that, or I don't ever have to push that hard, or whatever it is. But I really feel like you said, entrepreneurs and humans in general go through stuff that is, right? And it feels like it's the end of the world, or it feels like, and whatever our belief structure is, we don't even recognize it half the time. At least for what you were, you're like, I have metrics. This is the data. At least I have something, which also makes the belief more concrete, right? But when we're looking at what you actually told yourself in your head, so for entrepreneurs that are like, oh, it just feels like the same crap. There's no way I could do this. That negative self-talk affects what we actually do, right? So what did you actually say to yourself? Like that first time about going, I'm just going to just do it once. How? Because you could have just said, dude, there's no way, I'm done and I'm out.
I'll answer that in 2 ways. The first is I want to make something appearance, which is exercising for 27 hours straight, but essentially 34. That is not something that is physically advisable without a lot of training. And I had 7 weeks to train for this. And as a frame of reference, if somebody's training for an Ironman, which at longest takes 16 hours, the average training time for that is 6 to 9 months. So, and I had 7 weeks, and I was going way longer than 16 hours. But I bring that up because you have to start somewhere, right? You have to take the first step somewhere. And so the baby step is just doing the first thing, right? It's just doing one thing. And I think that that's a good lesson always, is in any situation, do one thing right now to get the ball moving, and commit to doing just that one thing. Make it small enough so that it's digestible so that you can do it, and plan the next time you're going to do it. And that keeps it going. And to the Everesting thing specifically, somebody asked me at some point, I have to think it was the middle of the night because I was in a car and it was dark. But the driver said, we've seen people hike the mountain before, but not like this. And he said, what's the secret? What's the trick? And I kind of thought, why is he asking me? Like this is, and I started to think about it, and I thought the trick is don't stop. And that seems really simplistic, but what I saw when I was going up the mountain and passing people, which was a part of the process, right? I necessarily was going to be passing people, is people would stop to catch their breath. And that makes sense, but there's an alternate way to do that. And the alternate way to do that is to slow down. And so if you slow down but keep going, you maintain movement. If you stop, two big things happen. One is you kill your momentum, but two is that you are allowing yourself to stop in the future, because we're creatures of habit. And so as soon as you establish a reference point that, hey, when I get tired, what do? I stop, right? That's a reference point that you will relive, not only in that activity, but in every other activity in your life. You say, okay, I'm tired. What do? I pause for a minute. And you don't have to have the negative words of I stop, right? I pause for a minute. And that seems soft and nice and okay. The alternative is, no, you don't, right? When you get tired, what you do is you take one more step, or you slow down, but you keep going. And it's a very simple thing, but a very powerful shift in frame, right? It's a rule that you can have where it's like, look, that's the deal. I get tired, I slow down a little bit.
Okay, I love this. And all of it applies to business. And that's what I think is really important, especially to sort of see the subset of the human psyche and what we do for ourselves. But what's crazy, and I think the guy in the car apparently thinks this too, the vision was huge. So when we think of like Easy Pay Director or any other company, did you typically have like a humongous vision to begin with and then just sort of start little bit by little bit and it added? Or do you not go that big? Because some people find motivation in huge things. Some people get scared as all crap of huge things. So how did you do it, especially like in the business side of things?
Yeah, I really firmly believe that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I know that's not universally true, but I will tell you that your behaviors in one area of life are mirrored in most other areas. So this is an athletic analogy, but take it as an analogy and think about it in business and all of it. I don't have a great answer to that. I think sometimes my vision is really big and sometimes it's more realistic. But it's always I'm always trying to maintain movement, right? I'm always trying to just do something. And one of these rules that I try to live by is it's always better to do something. And very often I'm a perfectionist at heart, and I am super analytical. And what that means is that it's very easy to get, analysis paralysis, or get stuck in a moment where I think I've got all these things going on. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to misstep, or I don't want to waste time, right? So I want to make sure I pick the right activity to do. But the answer is no. You're always better off just doing something, right? Just do something. for me. So I don't know. I don't think that the huge vision thing necessarily, it doesn't happen in all areas of my life, but man, it definitely juices me. And as soon as I make a commitment like that, I'm not gonna back down.
As we now, I want to say something that's going to make you commit something huge, but I'll leave that till later. But I think momentum is a huge thing, because when you feel like you're on a trajectory, that's an amazing feeling. You feel like you can do more. You've got something behind you. But my mantra since I was little was progress, and I'm also a perfectionist, or a recovering perfectionist, right? And so making missteps were huge. And if you're beginning a business, they're way bigger. And everybody says there's no such thing as failure, but it is very different when you are in it comparatively to hearing other people be like, there's no failure. Or they talk about failures and it's like, oh, but it was in the past and it's not as painful as it is now. So what did you do even on the decision-making level to know potentially that we could be making a misstep, or you could be detracting that momentum, or whatever that piece is? You're going down the wrong path. How do you know which place to choose, and how do you get faster at making those decisions? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that all I can do is speak from my own experience and what helps me on a daily basis, monthly basis, et cetera, to move forward. And for me, one of the things that I try to always do is keep reassessing where I want to go and reflecting on how I'm living, right? So it has to be a daily thing or close to it, where you're like, all right, so here's the goal, here's the goal, here's the goal. What did I do today to get closer to the goal, right? Because very often people, and I'm becoming more and more aware of this, I will set a goal, and then I look at my calendar, and I run a zero gap calendar. So my calendar is always completely full, retroactively, not necessarily in the future, but throughout my day, I adjust my calendar to reflect what I've done, because it allows me then to look at it and say, hey, did I do the things that are helping me move towards the goals? And very often it's not, right? And if you look at somebody's calendar, you can see the alignment or lack of alignment. And I think that that's at the heart of it for me, is making sure that I see it all the time, and am aware of whether or not I'm actually taking big steps towards it.
That's awesome. Okay, so it's less, I love how analytical it is, because I thought you were going to say, well, I meditate on the vision, or I do the things. And you're like, no, I data track all the crap that I did in the past, not even do you pre-plan in the future what goes there? Like, because that's the other piece.
Yep, I do, but it changes all the time. It frequently changes. So I try to do that as much as I can. And that's an area where I'm always trying to get better at the planning component, because I think, to your point, you said, hey, do you set big goals? You do something like the Everesting thing. That is you have immediate pressure of, my body might actually break if I try to just go do that. So you have I need to do X amount of stairs or whatever first. And in business, it's harder to quantify those things, and it's harder to create the pressure around it. But yeah, you have to have the goals in front of you. And the individual blocking, it's tough. I'm growing with that one.
Were you always like that? It's like, so we talked about how you did Cutco. Hal Elrod was there last night too, and you guys started in Cutco, right? Which
we did.
Great learning experience. So when you were younger, like learning the sales part, I know you became like really, really awesome at it too, but like you weren't at the beginning, right? So was this your mantra even then, or was it sort of in this whole process you've refined it?
I like to think about that, because and I think that this is a very cool takeaway for anybody that's sort of frustrated with where they are in life, because I frequently find myself frustrated with where I am. Nobody is harder on me than I am, and I'm working on that too.
Love it.
But I think, man, I should be further. I should be accomplishing more. I should be more analytical, have things more tracked, right? More systemized. But when I look back to who I was at 18, the biggest variable with all of it was personal growth. All of it. I'm a very different person today than I was at 18, and it's only because I elected to spend time on an ongoing basis trying to get better. And the trying to get better as a human and as a salesperson, as a business person, very often feels like, very often it's like, I'm not making enough progress, whatever. Little tiny wins here or there, or you don't even notice them, but it's building habit, right? And so it's conditioning your mind to work a different way, to think a different way. And it's those rules that we were talking about. Like on the mountain, it's just keep moving, one extra step. And so when I was in sales at 18, I don't think I had any supportive rituals like that. The only driver I had then was I didn't want to lose, and I wanted to beat everybody. And nothing else really mattered. I'm super competitive, and I was like, I just have to beat everybody.
Oh, I didn't know that about you. Oh,
yeah.
But that's an amazing trait, and I'm super competitive too. Of entrepreneurs, I think in general, A, we want to win, but B, there's always more. Like so I really appreciate you actually saying that, because most people are like, oh, but they're up here. It never ends, unfortunately or fortunately, right? One or the other.
Agreed.
So I want to ask about the personal growth side, especially because everyone's going, ooh, what was the best pieces, right? So there's probably been a lot of personal growth stuff that you've done, books you've read, everything like that. What do you think gave you the most momentum or the biggest step over everything, if you had to pick one or two?
I almost hate to say this because it's because people have such judgment around this, but Tony Robbins.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Landmark. So yeah, okay.
No, I actually haven't done Landmark, but I know many who have. So oddly, when I was 19 and I started selling Cutco, Hal Elrod, who you know, it was also selling Cutco, and Hal gets very excited about things. So very excited about whatever's exciting to him in the moment. And then he sort of forgets about it and gets excited about something else. And he was very excited about, at the time, Tony Robbins, but he was like, yeah, this guy, and he's got these tapes and, blah, 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 blah. And he fired me up a little bit about it. And I kind of heard it and forgot it. And at the time, my TV was my alarm clock. So it would just turn on in the morning, but it would turn on to whatever channel was on the night before. So I would watch Comedy Central at night. Well, at 6:30 a.m. when I woke up, Comedy Central played infomercials. So I would wake up frequently to an infomercial. And I'm laying in bed, and I hear this infomercial come on, and I could tell while I was laying in bed. I didn't see the TV. I didn't know Tony Robbins' name, but I heard it come on, and I thought, this is different. This infomercial sounds different. And fortunately, I think I was naive enough that there was no stigma around it for me. My parents never exposed me to it. I didn't have any friends that exposed me to negative feelings about it. It was just something to check out. And so I listened to the tape series for a month, Personal Power 2. But it was about 10 years before I went to an actual event. That was the biggest thing for me. And I think, his thing is, essentially, you have to go full out. Like, you either have to, if you're going to listen to his stuff, do it. Don't feel self-conscious about it. Just do it, listen to it, whatever. And if you find him cheesy at all, go to a live event instead of listening to the tapes, because he will break your frame on that.
Oh, yeah.
You've been to live stuff.
I've been to one live thing. Yeah. And it was like, wow, it was crazy. Like, the amount of energy that he possesses on stage too is just amazing, ridiculously amazing. So do you feel like that so there's one thing to be listening to stuff or to go to the events. There's another thing to implement and or do the things, right? Because yes, so consumption is wonderful if that's what you got so far, and there's more to it, right? So what did it change in you? What did you actually do, or the implementation steps? Do you remember any of the pieces?
What I remember is, and you'll see a strong parallel to what I talk about in terms of my days now. What I remember is every day through Personal Power, through that series, you had assignments, and it was you have these, and some of them were tiny, some of them were like little couple-minute assignments, some of them took an hour or two. But it's 30 days, and you can always carve out an hour in your day if you need to. At worst case scenario, you're sacrificing an hour of sleep to do that, right? But you can always do it if you need to, want to. So I think it's building the habit of perpetual motion, right? It was building the habit of, these are things that I'm going to do every day, and you carve out time to do it every day. And today, for me, that is, and there are missteps. This is not like a ritual that I have no flaws with, but I capture what I call magic moments in my life, things that stuck out to me for some reason. I do that every day, or close to it, and I reflect on them. So I also look at my goals, and I think about, all right, in these different areas of life, what do I want to create, and have I pushed forward towards that? But those are the habit of doing that daily, and exercise is in there too. But that's at this point so ingrained that I don't even think to mention it. But those habits, I think, started back then. Those started with a mentor, right? A coach, somebody teaching me a different way and helping establish a belief to move in that direction.
I love this stuff. Life is a series of moments, right? And we kind of forget that sometimes, right? It's the journey, and it's the steps that you're talking about. And they seem so incremental when you look at just one. And unfortunately, for most entrepreneurs, they're like, but it's not big. It could be better, right? Judgy. But that's the point. All those steps added up for you doing 34 freaking things, right? And you couldn't have taken any of those steps away because you wouldn't have finished. Okay.
Absolutely.
So when we look at it incrementally, it feels like today is just a day, but it so adds up. And I love that you can go back to your calendar and actually look. And the fact that you actually do that is very impressive, because most people will record it and be like, and I'm just not going to look at it. Right? Like, I'm doing okay.
So what's crazy is, one, speaking of like living in the moment and having amazing moments, you had a brief moment last night to meet John Broman. You need to talk to him about that.
Okay.
John is he would be an awesome guest here.
Oh, great.
And is super powerful from that perspective. Front Row Foundation is his company.
Oh, no way. I didn't know he was there. I didn't know 4 people at the entire place, and I met the other 3 people, but I didn't meet John. Darn it. Okay.
Yeah. So those moments, I get distracted now. That's all I remember.
Front row.
You got to talk to John. Yeah.
Because you went to see the UFC fight that I should have met John before, but anyway, yes, continue.
I did. That was with Hal and John. But I forgot where we started there.
We were going over how life is about a series of moments, and then you actually look at your calendar on the back instead of not. Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna give this out on my personal website because it's been such a big deal for me, and my friends have liked it so much. Ooh. But I have I keep these moments in a Google sheet, and now I have written scripts so that what I do is I might do 3 to 10 moments each day. So quick days, it's just knock out 3. But over the course of a year, that's 1,000 moments, or 500 to 1,000 moments if you're on the low side. And so what I did is I created some scripts that scrape that data. And so I look at like the frequency of names, and I say, well, whose name has popped up the most, right? That's huge, because I talk about looking at your calendar. Well, if I do that every day, at the end of the year, I can look at it and say, who was most prevalent in my life? Mm-hmm. I also do word analysis. So it's what words am I using the most? I also do location. So what places am I frequenting the most? And that's hugely telling of how I'm spending my time, and how I'm thinking, and how I'm talking to myself, right? And so that's a awesome thing. And I don't set the frame that I'm going to do this because it changes how I write, but periodically I will, at the end of the year, send some of those moments to people in my life and say, hey, here are a handful of things that touched me for some reason. And I've done that a couple times over the years, but that tool, at some point I'll put it up on bradweimert.com, because it's just, it's such a cool way to track your life and actually analyze how you're spending your time.
Yeah, when you said you were analytical, I was like, yeah, I know. I'm a geek, right? I did not know the level that it went to.
Yep.
But now I want that. So now
Good.
can I challenge you? Ooh, can I challenge you and make sure you put that up there?
Yep, it's done.
Yay, good, because I really want that. I do it, but in pen, and so I can't go back and do the data scraping stuff, which would be really telling. I flip through it once in a while, and just like relive sweet moments. But that's my level of analytics for
No, totally. And so this evolved over years. Originally, it was I would just search for people's names, and then when I put it into a spreadsheet. A Google sheet, I could then do a filter and say, okay, well, let's pull up all the things that have this name in it. And over time, it's gotten more advanced now.
Do you remember what one of the words was that came up over and over? I'm wondering like what comes up.
I'll pull it up and tell you.
Oh, yay. Yeah. I've done that with the interviews. So I went through, it was 200 and something interviews, and we found out that the most common word that came up more than any of the other ones, for the typical word subset, was focus. Which I was like, ooh, that's really, really good. And what's crazy is Liam, who I just interviewed, has focus written 3 times tattooed on his wrist. It is such a common thing that everybody seems to talk about on this, which is
focus.
Yeah.
I love it. My word is alignment.
Ooh.
So that will ultimately end up on this wrist.
I've thought of that too. Okay.
I love it.
Sweet. I will do the 2 week. I'm going to be interviewing the 2 week ink guy. By the way, so it lasts for 2 weeks. So I'll do it for you. Yeah. No, I'll tell you all about it after. But
my gosh,
yes, it's
that's
amazing.
awesome.
Yes.
So I have a friend that does his quarterly goals on a bracelet, and originally he was just going to start tattooing the quarterly goals on his arm so that all of his goals for the years. Then he thought that's going to get out of control.
Right. So I'm going to live to 120. Darn it. No.
Yeah, exactly. So now he does a bracelet that he just makes, and I thought that was super cool.
That's great.
So one of the cool things about this sheet that I made is it allows you to do negative words also. So you can say, well, don't include this word, that, right? So I omit a bunch of things, and it might actually be helpful to do things like him or her, which is a disturbingly imbalanced use of that word because we tend to use the masculine as the default, right?
Yeah.
Which that's a different conversation.
I know we could go down there too. I know. I'm not going to ask questions because I know we have to wrap up. All right, so
not good ramifications. Feeling is the number one word.
No way, really?
Yep.
So last year,
so far this year, 193 uses of it in my moments, and awesome. So far this year I have 289 moments.
Wow, that's a lot then. Okay. So you really go based on feelings. And so is the alignment and because we don't have enough time to go down this path, but sometime me and you are going to chat about this, whether I have you back on and you'll be here because you
I like it.
10 minutes away, but that's okay. Yep. Because one of the things that I work with clients and stuff like that is feelings, because we only do things for the feelings we're going to have for doing them. Right. And so do you pay attention to that when you're trying to pay attention to alignment, considering you're going to tattoo it on you?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's such an interesting conversation because it's very difficult to live in the space where you listen to yourself, listen to your feelings, and act based on that. Yes. But also push through discomfort and push through, I don't feel like doing it. Right. And that I'll leave you with an analogy on that, which is, and I suppose this is pretty tactical too, but when I was climbing the mountain, do you think that there were moments where I felt like not doing it? Yeah, a lot. And beyond that, there were moments when my body felt like it was going to break. And so I start with sleep deprivation, malnutrition, dehydration. I got to a point, it's after 20 hours in, where I thought, man, my knee, I had this intense stabbing pain in my right knee every step that I took. And I thought, it would be really dumb if I tore something and did permanent damage and then couldn't walk for the rest of my life or couldn't walk normal just because I wanted to climb this mountain. So this is what I'm thinking, right? And in that moment, a rational thought is, I should probably stop. That would be dumb, right? So, and here's the takeaway. I made a decision before I started the activity, that not only was I allowed to get injured, but it was likely. And that was okay. And it doesn't have to be that extreme, but that's what kept me moving, was when I questioned this and thought, yeah, it would be stupid, whatever, I had already made the decision. And so I recognized that I was exhausted, et cetera, et cetera. So I listened to earlier Brad and said, you know what? I already made the decision. And I think that's really important when you go into any difficult thing, that you think ahead of time about what the potential pitfalls are and how you're going to handle them, so that when you get there, if you hit them, it doesn't freak you out. You've already made the call.
I'm reading a book called Principles, which is very similar. Like, what are those main principles that, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's so good. And it's just like you say, that thing that when the going gets tough, that you're guiding light, that you can keep looking towards, because you already know what's better for yourself, or your higher self actually cares about more. I love this. Okay. So I know we have to start wrapping up, because we're going over now, because I keep asking you too many questions, but I'm going to ask the last one. What's one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of 1 million?
Prof, you want to say hi? You want to meet the professor?
Yes. He's a professor. Oh, I remember.
Here,
I've only seen pictures.
Yeah. I just woke him up. He's not very happy about that, but
he's big.
Professor. Hey, buddy. Yeah. Say hi to everybody. No, you're uninterested.
I know. He looks really,
He's like, dude, you woke me up. So he's my teddy bear. I think that there are, a ton of things, but I think that one of them is the calendar. It's fill your calendar with what you did. For a lot of people, planning is a hurdle. Some people are great at planning. Some people bucket. I bucket. If you do nothing else, fill your calendar retroactively, either through the day or at the end of the day, but put everything that you did for the day, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but make sure that you block it out so that the whole day is full. And that allows you later to look at how you've actually been spending your time. But you need to know if how you're spending your time is in alignment with what you actually want to get done in your life. And not just business, but personal. If your goal is to spend more time with family, or to go on an adventure, or to run a 5K, make sure that you can see in your calendar whether or not that's in line with those goals.
I use the self journal every day, and I'm realizing now that I can't go. I'm going to go scroll through, of course, but now I'm like, now I need to be like Brad and be digital, so that way I can search things and make sure, and then correlate that data to AI. No,
I'm a big fan of digital.
Oh, I really appreciate that. And now that everybody can download what you're going to be putting out on your site, so tell us where we can get that, because it will have to be out now. Ha ha ha.
That's true.
Yeah. So spell your name and everything, so everybody knows where to get it.
Yeah, well, BradWeimert.com. So BRAD, my last name is WEIMERT, BradWeimert.com. And I'll put it up there somewhere. Actually, yeah, I'll put it up there somewhere. At least, now I got to get it up.
Yep. So don't worry, there's at least a little bit of time before this interview actually goes live. And what we'll do is we'll link to it. So everybody,
awesome.
So you tell me where it is, and we'll make sure we put it in the show notes too, so everyone can check it out, because I'm sure everybody wants it now that we talked all about this. This was crazy. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Brad, especially on such short notice, by the way, because you squeezed in. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we can have you back on in person so we can talk about more crazy, awesome stuff.
That'd be cool. I appreciate you having me. It's been fun.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And if you want to check out more amazing resources, I'm only curating the best of the best. Go check out eventualmillionaire.com. You can take the Eventual Millionaire quiz, figure out where you are in business and what you need right now. Plus, you can look at curated resources specifically for you on the new Start Here page. I'm so excited. Please join us. Please let me know if you need anything at all. I'm here for you. And have a fantastic day. Bye.